Good evening, Secret Agent fans, and welcome to a video where we attempt to answer the age-old question, why exactly did the spy come in from the cold?
Well, there was a heck of a crowd on the piece.
Oh, well, that was easy. Got time to fill. Should we talk about a movie? Le Carre's name is generally very well known amongst fans of literary spy fiction. On this channel previously, I've discussed both the TV and film adaptations of, I would say, his most famous work, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and just in case you didn't see that video, the short of it here is that I was a big fan of the TV version, much less so of the film, for a variety of reasons, one of the main being that I felt it was incredibly, for lack of a better word, cold. And that's not to say that the TV show was a warm and affable hug of a series, even remotely. It's very cold too, but from what I understand, this rather objective unemotionality is a signature staple of Le Carre's work. To deviate from it would be to do his work a disservice, so I appreciate that every time I'm going to come to some kind of adaptation of his work, it's likely to be a litmus test for how much coldness a viewer can take before you just flat out stop enjoying watching the thing that you're watching. And if you're a regular viewer to this channel, you'll know that my temperature tolerance is actually quite low. The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, directed by Martin Ritt, was released at the end of 1965, and it follows Richard Burton's Alec Leamas, a British MI6 agent during the Cold War, who may or may not be defecting to the East. If you haven't seen the film, I think it's important to go into it not knowing much about the plot, as there are a good few twists and surprises in here, so I'm going to be talking about the plot and characters in a very general sense in this video, rather than going through the plot beat by beat. There are some really fantastic looking releases of this film out there, and it's a very notable piece of spy cinema, so regardless of how I end this review with my personal feelings about the film, it is something that I would nonetheless recommend to viewers to seek out. During the course of the film, we see Leamas begin a relationship with Claire Bloom's Nan Perry, a young radical Communist Party member living in London, and I guess if the film could be described as having an emotional core, it's in this, which plays out alongside the spy stuff. This is a drama and a slow-burning thriller. There are a couple of moments of action, but it's all very muted and extravagant, and that's fine, because for the most part, the main excitement and suspense of the film comes from the conversations we see between agents of various sides, wondering if a slipped word or a misspoken line here or there is going to be someone's undoing, so it's apt that the dialogue here is as first-rate as it is. I've never read the book, so I have no idea how much of the dialogue is like straight up adapted from that. I understand that the film is a relatively faithful adaptation of the book, but the screenplay anyway is credited to Guy Trosper and Paul Dane, and Bond fans will of course know Paul Dane as the co-screenwriter of Goldfinger, which was released I think the year previous to this film's release, and I just can't even imagine how much of a tonal whiplash that must have been, like going from working on Goldfinger to The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. Just while we're on the Bond front too, Bernard Lee has a small role in this film. He's only in it for a few scenes, but he plays a really great part, and I got a little kick out of seeing him pop up in this. I was also surprised to see a character named George Smiley in this, obviously the lead character from Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and I knew that he was a recurring figure in Le Carre's works, but he's a very minor character here, and I didn't realise that there was a full-fledged Smiley-verse going on here. I waited until the end credits half expecting there to be a scene there setting up Carla as a main villain of the films that are gonna come afterwards, like he's Thanos or something. The film's tone is obviously very dark and very cold. Spy work is a dirty business populated by broken people meeting in seedy places. One of my favourite scenes in the whole thing is when Burton meets up with a couple of agents, one of whom is played by Michael Hordern, and they meet in this strip club in London, and Hordern is just really great portraying this sad, quite pathetic man, and just the lack of empathy from the other characters towards him is harsh but brilliant. I really like this scene. It's probably my favourite scene in the entire film. And obviously Richard Burton is the lead in this, and he won a variety of awards for his performance, including Best British Actor at the BAFTAs. He was nominated for the Academy Award for this role, and yeah, he's phenomenal. Burton for me is one of those actors who I can literally, he could just read the phone book and he'd be so engrossing for me. His voice is just one of the greatest to ever grace cinema, and his screen presence is just magnetic. He's such a genuine movie star. And perhaps that image is quite contrary to the part that he's playing here. I was surprised listening to some of the behind-the-scenes materials that are on the Blu-ray about the film that Burton was actually a slightly controversial choice for the part, with some feeling that he was indeed too much of a star, too handsome, too magnetic to be playing the lead in this, where, yeah, it's striving for realism. Same with Claire Bloom. Apparently there was a sentiment that she was perhaps a bit too pretty or too conventionally attractive to play this part, and I guess I see that. If you read the book and imagine these characters as quite dowdy and humdrum, then these two people don't fit that qualification. But just personally speaking, I like that these two do stand out from the rest of the people in this. Not enough that it feels like they're not a part of the same world. I think that their performances are perfectly pitched to fit in with everything that's going on around them, but they do have that movie star shine that comes through even when the blackout curtains are attempting to cover it up. Burton's big and I think most notable moment in the film comes towards the end, where he delivers an incredibly memorable impromptu speech on the horrible, depressing nature of spy work.
What the hell do you think spies are? Moral philosophers measuring everything they do against the word of God or Karl Marx? They're not. They're just a bunch of seedy, squalid bastards like me. Little men, drunkards, queers, henpecked husbands, civil servants playing cowboys and Indians to brighten their rotten little lives. Do you think they sit like monks in a cell, balancing right against wrong?
I think his performance is just perfectly pitched throughout. I think he's just an incredible performer in general. He's one of those actors who I just relish every time I see him in a film, every time I see him on screen. He's phenomenal, and this is some of his very best work, I think. But as I alluded to earlier on, and this is totally a personal preference thing, I review films on this channel from my own perspective, nobody else's. I do eventually reach a point where the coldness of tone becomes borderline oppressive, and there were a couple of stretches in this that felt like an endurance test for me. The film is under 2 hours in length, but I did hit the button to check how far through it I was at a couple of points and how long was left, and I was slightly stunned that I was only, say, an hour into it, where it felt like I was nearly at 2. And I get it, that's the point. This isn't a fun lark of a scenario, that's not what Le Carré's work is about, and if the screenwriters were trying to address notes like making the lead characters more likable, or insert car chase here to wake up the audience, it would be inauthentic, and I'm not even suggesting that the film needs such gimmicks. I think it works perfectly well as is, but just personally speaking, I hit a wall after a certain time, despite the fact that I was certainly engaged throughout. I'd go so far as to say it's certainly a classic of the genre and something that I'd recommend people seek out. It took me a good deal of time to actually get around to it, but given that it was only recently released on Blu-ray in the UK, I'm actually quite glad that it did take me until now to get around to watching it. It's a glorious transfer that I watched, and I think it's quite a beautiful looking film, despite its obviously more kitchen sink realistic grubbiness. So I do recommend you seek it out, particularly if you're a fan of spy media and spy movies. It's a really interesting contrast to James Bond, obviously, and the kind of fun spy stuff that was very prevalent in the 1960s. It's very much a counterpoint to that, like I guess a lot of Le Carré's work is. Thank you very much to all of the Patreon supporters who voted in this particular poll. It was like super down to the line, like whether this or Charade, another 60s spy film, was going to win out. Both films are films that I've been really looking for an excuse to watch for some time, so yeah, I was going to be happy either way, but I'm really happy to have finally experienced this one in particular. And if you want to have a say in which future non-Bond films I review on this channel, then please do head over to my Patreon page. There's a link below. You can head over there and check out how to get involved. Also below are links to my other social media pages, so my Instagram page, my Twitter page, and my Facebook page, so do follow me over there, and then you can always subscribe to this channel if you have not already done so, which would be really nice, and you can also click the Mrs. Bell notification button to stay super up to date on future video uploads. And last but certainly not least, please do leave your own comments on this film in the comment section below. I do quite like coming back to and talking about these films that are maybe not as revisited as some of the others, that you talk about some very popular films and series like Mission Impossible, but then I always find it interesting coming back to films like this, which certainly have a great reputation, but maybe aren't seen quite as much, so it's just, I just like seeing other people's opinions on these kinds of films that you don't often get to discuss. So yes, please do let me know your thoughts on the film if you have indeed seen it in the comment section below. With all that being said, and until next time, spy fans, stay warm, and so long for now.